Hello and welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Sam. In today's video I want to talk about the power of our implicit beliefs, and more specifically about one belief which I implicitly held for quite a long time, which I then eventually questioned, and how this questioning has changed my life. It is quite natural for us as human beings to have many beliefs which we have inherited. Some of our beliefs have been with us for generations, have been passed on to us, and some we have gained within our very own lifetimes, based on our own experience, what we have learned in our family, from our friends, in school, university, from books, or wherever you get your information. And the fascinating thing, of course, is that a lot of times we end up taking these beliefs for granted. If you have been watching any of my other videos, you certainly noticed that the point I always keep returning to is that of what we really are, what our true nature is, what our being actually is in reality. The reason I point to this so relentlessly is because, for the most part, we as human beings have been conditioned to think that we are a separate self, stuck in a body mind. We live with this false belief that we are a limited being, when, in reality, we are dimensionless openness, space-like awareness, emptiness that is full, pure potentiality. There are numerous words for it, but I'm referring to the absolute, to your real being. This real being is, of course, generally overlooked in our lives, and more broadly, it is overlooked in our culture. There are many reasons why it is so, but there's one belief in particular that might be quite the strong contributing factor as to why we so often overlook our real being, or furthermore, why it can be so hard to recognize our real being. And this belief I'm referring to is the belief that we are living in a world of matter, of dead objects, that there is an outside world that is not alive, as opposed to us who are flesh and blood beings who are alive. I'm referring to a sense of metaphysical materialism, the belief that I here am an object, and outside of me are objects made out of stuff, out of dead stuff. Basically what I'm referring to is a belief in duality, the belief that I am here as a separate self and there is this outside world which is not me. But with this belief, as I grew up with it, came also the assumption that there is not just an outside world, but it is in some sense a cold world, a dead world. There are some exceptions of it, of course. There is nature, there are animals, there are other human beings. But by and large, it is a gigantic, vast universe, devoid of life. And we are, as human beings, some sort of small candle in this vast darkness of the world. This wasn't an assumption I consciously held in my mind. It was more so something that operated in the background of my mind. Many people who start on a path of spirituality first start with a practice of mindfulness. They start noticing their breath, for example, start to consciously be aware of it, and then furthermore, they move on to the other perceptions, like hearing and even seeing. With this exploration then comes the insight that everything you are aware of simply appears in awareness. You can notice very easily that whether an outside world exists or not, you are not aware of it. The only thing you are aware of is your own experience. Take the experience you have of the world right now. There's the sound of my voice, for example, which you assume was spoken by me and you are now receiving through your headphones or your speakers. But easily notice here that the sound of my voice is not appearing in some distant place. It's appearing right here in your awareness, closer than close to you. All you know of the sound of my voice right now is the hearing of it. And hearing is not some abstract thing there in the world. Hearing is simply part of your awareness. And in the same way, what you are experiencing of the world in front of you right now is just seeing. We have this very strong belief that we are seeing an outside world. But just be honest with yourself for a bit. Can you notice that seeing is simply another form of awareness? All you know of the outside world, as I said, is seeing. But seeing is something that only takes place in awareness. Seeing doesn't take place in an outside world. It is here right now. It is your experience. You don't have access to an outside world. You just have access to this experience. Now here comes the crucial part. Even though this was quite obvious to me, I somehow didn't dare to ask whether there even is an outside world. I took for granted that there was this world of matter, whatever matter really is, and that this world of matter somehow gave rise to my being, to consciousness, to that which I really am. But one day I started to question that fundamental belief. I flipped the script, so to say, and asked myself how I knew that this world of matter even existed. Why is it not the case that being is fundamental? After all, everything we experience is only awareness. Everything is just a form that awareness takes. This is all we have ever known, all we have ever experienced. Why is the belief in an outside world of matter necessary? When I started questioning this belief, something changed. It was like a thorn was removed from my mind. A pain was let go of. A kind of implicit duality, which I always carried in myself, disappeared. Even though I knew that all I experienced was awareness itself, before I somehow still had this belief that I was a thing in a world made of other things. And of course, if you believe that duality is the natural consequence, it is incredibly hard to realize that you are this boundless emptiness, this complete openness, if you simultaneously think that this emptiness, this absolute, this awareness is simply a product of that stuff. There's a kind of inconsistency here. You might wonder how I was able to question this belief, or why this sort of implicit assumption of the world was suddenly something I could let go of. Now, what I'm about to share might be of interest to you, but I'm by no means saying that it is necessary. Discovering our true nature is not like baking a cake. We all have our own conditioning. The body-mind is always configured differently. What might be useful to some as a pointer might not be useful to others, and we all have different obstacles to face. It seemed that, to me, this questioning of the belief of metaphysical materialism was somehow essential to me. But I can't be certain of that. It wasn't like I was running a scientific experiment. In a proper scientific experiment, you only want to change one variable and leave all the other variables the same, and then see if there's a change in outcome. Our spiritual path, of course, almost never works like that. What usually happens is that we employ a variety of methods, follow many different instructions, read from many different sources, and things change. Our experience, our beliefs start to change, and a fundamental shift can take place. At the end of that, of course, when we look back, it is hard to say which understanding specifically caused this shift. But in my case, it certainly seemed like this questioning of the belief in a world made out of matter was somehow fundamental to it. Since I was quite skeptical by nature, I couldn't just drop this belief in a world made out of matter very easily. I needed to formulate sort of an alternative view of the world. If you are philosophically interested, I can recommend you the work of Bernardo Kastrup, for example. He's a philosopher who goes into quite some detail about building a metaphysical interpretation of the world, which is based on the assumption that awareness is fundamental and not matter. I found reading his work helpful in order to clarify my own understanding. But to summarize the basic point of it, the basic assumption that we usually have is that there must be an outside world, because clearly, if I close my eyes or if I'm not here, the world is still there. Well, yes, I agree with you, something is still there. But there is no need to believe that the world out of matter is still there. The suggestion is this. Right now, from the perspective of this body-mind, experience is taking place. I'm seeing the camera and the room in front of me right now. I'm hearing the sound of my own voice. I'm feeling my body. And if you were to look at the activity of my brain, this activity would correlate to my experience. Certain brain regions, for example, would be active because I'm seeing right now. Others would be active because linguistic processing is taking place right now. My brain and my body, therefore, is an image of what I'm experiencing right now from my own perspective. Let me repeat that, because I know it can be a bit hard to follow. I, right now, am experiencing the world in front of me. I am experiencing sights, sounds, feelings, all of my perceptions. This is the first-person view of my experience. Now an outsider from a third-person view could take a look at my body, and if he has a brain scanner at hand, he could take a very close look at my body, and he would notice that with my experience of the world, the activity of my body, including my brain, correlate with that experience. With the right instruments, you could see that the activity of my body and my brain correlate with my first-person experience of the world. Having understood that, let's go back to this outside world, which seemingly is always here and doesn't go away. The suggestion here is that what we see as the outside universe is also a third-person view of an internal experience. If we are seeing the universe and all the shapes it takes, what we are actually seeing is the activity of a universal mind. All of that, all of this concrete world we see, is simply what the first-person experience of the universal mind looks like from our outside perspective. Take some time to ponder what I just said. I know this might be hard to follow. Everything you see in the world, all the planets, all of nature, all the animals and human beings you encounter, all of that is just the activity of the universal mind. This universal mind, just like my own body mind, is active, and like I said, from your point of view, the experience of my body mind looks like the activity of my body and my brain, and from our perspective, the activity of the universal mind looks like the universe. If you don't find this model interesting, if you're skeptical of it, if you think it's nonsense even, that's fine. The understanding of our true nature by no means is connected to this metaphysical model. As a matter of fact, in my day-to-day experience, I don't think of this metaphysical model at all. But at some point in my life, developing this model was useful to me. It allowed me to shift and drop this idea of a world made out of stuff in which I'm just an object. At the end of the day, we don't want to rely on any model whatsoever. Clinging to any model would just be another understanding we fixate on. But if you were like me, implicitly stuck in this idea of an outside world, then maybe pondering an alternative view might be useful to you. So allow your mind to play with this consideration. Allow yourself to ponder whether the belief of yourself as an object in a world made out of objects makes sense, is necessary. Allow yourself to realize that there is actually just one reality, this wide open, dimensionless awareness. You might also ask yourself why it is even necessary to question our metaphysical assumptions about the world in this way. The huge advantage of this model I just proposed is that with it, we don't have to wonder how something limiting like a world of matter could give rise to something that is unlimited and dimensionless, like awareness. It gives us a model in which the statement that all there is awareness, all there is this dimensionless emptiness, makes sense. I hope you found this exploration of our beliefs in the nature of reality interesting. I know it can be quite the complex topic, and I'm by no means a philosopher. I'm a psychologist. If you weren't able to follow me, no worries at all. Nevertheless, I hope you found this exploration interesting. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you here next time.